Maasai. You've probably seen those Russians treating grizzly bears like house dogs. You might want to hear about the Maasai, who were known for making any animal rethink their place in the food chain. These people were the most fearless warriors of the East African savanna. Their confidence levels were so high that they all thought they were invincible, especially when facing dangerous African animals. That lion who killed 10 people in the nearby village? That's but a mere house cat to a Maasai warrior. When one of these guys encounters some of the deadliest predators in Africa, they'd say, "Call an ambulance," but not for me. With a deep stare and spear, this warrior would make any animal believe it should have gone after gazelles instead. If you were in the position of those animals, you'd also stay away from one of these warriors. The Maasai are known for being among the world's highest leapers. They look like they're on trampolines when jumping next to LeBron James. These guys are also made of pure meat because they mix their food with milk, meat, and blood. Now that's a protein shake any gym bro would love to drink. Nicobarese. Your mom always warns you not to swim too far from the beach when you're on a tropical island, but for the Nicobarese of the Nicobar Islands, they practically learn to swim before they can walk. These guys aren't necessarily dangerous, but their lifestyle isn't for those ready to move from easy to hard mode. The Nicobarese have more islander blood than a starfish. This has allowed them to easily navigate the dangerous waters. Even modern sailors can't easily sail the harsh waters of the Nicobar Islands, but these guys were sailing on cheat mode because they practically had GPS installed in their brains from birth. Visiting the island won't be an instant death sentence to you, but the environment there would give you a run for your money. While the Nicobarese won't have any problem swimming and sailing in their deadly waters, in your case, it would be like doing a backstroke in a giant washing machine. Despite their rough surroundings, the Nicobarese are nice people. It's just that they're not too eager to form a welcoming party to greet you. But if you manage to get there with some extra life vests, these islanders are ready to allow you to stay on their island without getting too stabby with their spears. Kowai. If you're one of the Kowai people of Papua, it's best never to get too close to your neighbors. One day you're all hanging out and eating the usual roast pig for dinner together, and the next day you're practically being the main course. Yep, these guys were cannibals. The Kowai are a tribe of around 3,000 people who live mostly off the grid. They're believers in sorcery, which is actually the reason why they're into eating people. They think that misfortune is caused by evil spirits who go on to disguise themselves as a tribe member. So when someone dies or gets sick, the shaman would quickly point out the evil spirit hiding within the tribe. The next thing you know, that unlucky guy is getting roasted like a marshmallow on a campfire for the entire tribe to feast on him. Eating their own is their way of dealing with evil spirits. So if you're a tribe member and the shaman gives you a bad look, that means he thinks you're a snack. A literal one. The good news is that contact with the outside world has reduced this habit. Visitors and modern influencers have made them less keen on eating people, probably because their guests left a terrible TripAdvisor review. They probably discovered that the chef's special was usually one of their own who sneezed once. Futunans. If you were a neighboring island tribe centuries ago, you'd have to keep a lookout for the Futunan people, because these guys were war-crazed savages. They're nice people now, but back in the day, these guys were the original island bad boys, with a fearsome reputation for getting into trouble with other tribes. They weren't dropping by neighboring islands for casual talks about the weather. Instead, they came with war cries and pointy spears. A surprise visit from the Futunans meant showing up unannounced with spiked clubs, ready to redecorate your village with the blood of your people. These guys were top-tier warriors who not only protected their island fiercely, but also made sure that no other tribe would be a threat to them. Negotiation? They've never heard of such a thing. They'd rather introduce you to the pointy end of their spears and then negotiate with your corpse. But these guys weren't mindless brutes who came in charging with their clubs. Instead, they were masters of the art of war, using their deep understanding of their island's resources. For example, they turned their local plants into deadly toxins for spears and blow darts. Eventually, they learned that spears were no match for European guns and cannons. They adapted to the times, swapping their head-piking ways for handshakes. This is why they're now friendly to visitors. Tristan Duna. Going to Tristan Duna seems like an adventurous escape to an island far from civilization, but it's a one-way ticket to a paradise that's not always ready to welcome visitors. But the Tristan Islanders are nice people who have learned how to survive a dangerous, isolated island. They're tougher than a $2 steak, but the isolation makes this island not worth any discounted trip. Tristan is so isolated that it's the introvert of the island world. It's located thousands of miles from the nearest city. That means there won't be be any hospitals in case you get sick. If you get injured or ill on this island, your best bet is a DIY potion made from leaves and piss. But if that doesn't work, you'll either die on the island or on the worst boat ride back to civilization. Even if you have the strongest immune system in the world, you can't just sit pretty on this island. It's a large volcanic rock ready to blow its top off. Even without a tantrum from its volcano, the island has rough terrain and dangerous waters that could easily ruin your day. A visit to Tristan is definitely a rocky road. If you don't want your final memory of fishes swimming around you as you sink to the bottom of the sea, you might want to skip a trip to this island. Nukuhiva people. You'd never want to visit an island where the most cherished family recipe involves cooking humans. They're not likely to chow down on tourists today, but the Nukuhiva people of the Marquesas Islands had a taste for human flesh that would make Gordon Ramsay cringe. Sure, fish was a staple of their diet, but so was cannibalism. These people were warrior chefs who enjoyed flexing their muscles against neighboring tribes and unwanted guests. They were incredibly fierce fighters, not only because they were hungry for victory, but also because they craved human flesh. As such, they were trained to win battles, or they'd be stuck with empty plates. As cannibal warriors, the Nukuhiva had a unique approach to their culinary arts. They captured enemy tribesmen and added a dash of rituals before digging in, so if you invited them to a backyard barbecue, they'd probably show up with a marinated human leg ready for the grill. But eating their enemies wasn't just about keeping their bellies full. Instead, it was a bold statement of dominance. They didn't just want to beat you, but also wanted to eat you. So if you were a rival tribe, the last thing you'd want is a war with the Nukuhiva, because you wouldn't want to get roasted at a celebration party. Bajal out. Sea gypsies. Social media makes you think that living the island life on the sea is the best thing in the world. But you'd have to check out the Bajal out's lifestyle to say, maybe life on the ocean isn't for me. They're the people who make you think you should have paid attention to swim class in high school. Known as sea gypsies, the Bajal out are nomadic people who live around the waters of the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia. But these people aren't dangerous. Instead, their way of life will make you think it's probably best to stay on land. Sea gypsies live on the sea, hanging out on tiny boats and stilt houses above the water. They are at the mercy of the sea, which isn't the best babysitter in the middle of a storm. Living with them also means you're expected to dive and stay underwater for hours to grab a bite. Not even Michael Phelps would want to spend the entire day on this island, but the dangerous part is that they live in contested waters, aka pirate playgrounds. Pirates in Southeast Asia can turn your sea dreams into a nightmare. Let's not even forget about the not-too-friendly local authorities. If you're lucky, you might be in a territorial battle between China and the Philippines. Before you know it, a Chinese warship has already sunk you down to the deep blue sea. So while the Bajal Laut isn't going to kill you or anything, you'll quickly realize that life on the sea isn't the Instagram paradise you thought it would be. Ryell Islanders. There is no need for a home security system for the people of Ryell Island because these guys are some of the most territorial islanders. Ryell Island is a tropical paradise attracting thousands of influencer wannabes. The problem is that the Ryell Islanders like to keep this island to themselves. Trespassing? Forget it. You'd be lucky to leave this island alive because these guys protect their land with the same ferocity as a chihuahua protecting its toy. These islanders are just as paranoid as the Karen homeowner living across the street. They've mastered the art of old-school home protection by using booby traps that would make that Home Alone kid proud. They can also get you with their spears. These guys make Olympic javelin throwers look like amateurs because they can spear a mosquito 50 feet away. But fear not, because the Ryell Islanders aren't always going to pin you on a tree with their spears. If you go to Ryell Island, it's best to respect their turf and bring your A-game as a negotiator if you want to avoid trouble. Asmat People. You probably know that hunters love to show off their heads of animals they catch as trophies. The Asmat people of New Guinea had a similar hobby. In their case, they preferred collecting human heads, like how you collect action figures when you were younger. You can imagine how hard it is to tell your friends you're not losing your head on a trip to New Guinea. As headhunters, the Asmats would hunt people and collect their heads to prove their success. The collected heads were displayed around the village, like how you'd hang Christmas lights around your home. But instead of lighting up their villages, these preserved heads made towns look terrifying because of the looks of agony on their faces. But for the Asmats, hunting heads was just about preserving community bands. That's because this is their way of honoring their ancestors and strengthening their bonds with one another. Still, no one wants to be a head displayed in an Asmat village. Fortunately, the Asmats have dropped this part of their culture due to missionaries and Indonesian visitors. visitors. These days, they're more likely to give you a pat on the head than decapitating it. If you've got a good head on your shoulders and are interested in more head-blowing stuff, you should join our Discord now. Alabra Atal inhabitants. Normally, you'd worry about the people of a remote island first because you can't be too sure about how friendly they can be, but the folks of Alabra Atal will be the first to say you should be worried about the other island residents first. That's because this place is home to unique animals that are more than likely to turn this island into your resting place. This island is home to a civilization of animals like giant tortoises, which are usually harmless, but it's not these giant reptiles you should be worried about. Instead, watch out for those coconut crabs, because these guys aren't the ones you see in your local surf and turf. Instead, coconut crabs seemingly come from an alien movie, ready to crush you with powerful claws. Big, meaty claws! These animals are so strong that they are known to open coconuts, so if you manage to get on the bad side of one, they're clover enough to crack coconuts, and perhaps a finger or two. Mshko Piro. You remember that old grumpy neighbor you had? The one ready to throw hands with you if you step on his lawn? Well, that's what it's like stepping on the land of the Mshko Piro, a mysterious group living in the Amazon rainforest. These people love their privacy and aren't afraid of fighting for it. It's like they place their browser on incognito mode and are more than willing to fight someone who wants to look at their search history. Of course, they're keen on protecting their land because they simply want peace and quiet. They don't like it when many tourists start snapping away with their cameras after invading their homes. If the Mshko Piro don't like you, they're not vocal about it. Instead, they let their actions speak. They may live in a rainforest, but sometimes the rain comes in the form of hundreds of arrows falling from the sky. Forget about friendly welcome baskets when you enter their territory, because these guys prefer to treat their guests like target practice for their bow and arrow. But you can't blame them for wanting to make invaders look like pincushions full of arrows. They're just protective of their privacy and have never had the opportunity to contact the outside world. Karankaa. It's the medieval period, and you're a European explorer sailing to find gold or spices on the Texas Gulf Coast. But as soon as you see a patch of land, you're greeted by dozens of Shaquille O'Neal-sized islanders ready to bend you in half. European settlers had to deal with that when they encountered the Karankaa. These people were literal giants because they were incredibly tall, making unsuspecting Spanish conquistadors look like little children when they stumbled upon their land. When negotiating with these islanders, they most likely had neck pain looking up to the sky, but it wasn't just their height that made them deadly. The Karankaa were known for being fiercely independent and not too welcoming to guests, especially if they came with guns, cannons, and a priest ready to baptize them. You'd understand why they never liked it when outsiders tried stepping on their land. They were always ready to chase invaders off their property with big sticks. Unfortunately for these people, they are all but gone. The Karankaa had likely gone extinct when Spaniards, Mexicans, and Texans sent waves of invaders to chase them off their lands. But if you're the tallest kid on your basketball team, maybe you're a distant relative of the Karankaa.